Hello and welcome to May's Crochet. I am Rachel, and it is time for our February crochet film blanket wrap-up. Yes, it's already been 4 weeks. I can't believe it either, I know. So if you didn't catch my January wrap-up, I don't blame you. It was long. Editing it was even worse. But I do plan on having 12 squares like this, for one for each month. 16 movies per month is the goal, I hope, with a grand total of 192. Now, I don't know if I'm going to keep this specific joining method. I like it, but I'm afraid there's not going to be enough distinction to tell which month is which, so I may try something different with this month just to have something to compare, and then I'll decide after February what I'm going to do. So just some quick information. Solid color squares are movies I had never watched before. They were brand new to me, and they are all going to be ranked 1 through 3. 1, 2, 3. It is not that deep. It is simply I really don't want to watch it again, or I don't feel like I need to watch it again. I may not have hated it, but I've seen it. I'm over it. Could go either way. Yeah, I'd totally give this another shot. I'd love to see it again, maybe someday, whatever. I'm not determined, but if I never see it again, life goes on. I have to watch it again right now. Right now, but I can't because I've got other stuff to do. So that's it. Now the ones that are in purple are rewatches with the same ranking as the first round. And then they're all joined together with this variegated accent color. And that's that. So as I mentioned, January's wrap-up was very long. Now, a lot of it was setting up, but to keep it even shorter, I'm going to make the squares for the rewatches off camera. I will show them, I will talk about them, I will keep everything in the order that I've watched it. So hopefully that'll keep this from going longer than it really needs to, because 55 minutes was pretty excessive and it was just no fun editing. I was just tired at the end of it. But it is a process. I never always know what I want to do right away, and these things just kind of evolve over time. So thankfully there's 11 months for them to evolve still. With all of that being said, let's start talking about some movies. So the first watch of the month was a rewatch. As you can see, it's blue, so I love it very much. We rewatched Wicked. The girls and I did. Brad was out of town. He still hasn't watched it. Maybe one of these days we'll rope him into it.
You're green.
I am.
But it was the first time we had seen it since the movie theater back in November over Thanksgiving weekend. Absolutely love it. Stunning, beautiful. Everybody was fantastic. We've listened to the soundtrack a million times. It's great. No, I had not seen the stage production. I didn't even know the story at all. I knew a couple of songs and that was it. And I absolutely loved the film. I cannot wait for part 2. And because of that, I will warn you that this is not the first time this will be part of the blanket for the year. I will count it again. I will make another square for it when we rewatch it either October or November before part 2 comes out. But yeah, Wicked. So for my first new watch of the month, I saw last year's Trapped by M. Night Shyamalan. So it's about a dad taking his teenage daughter to a pop concert. And this isn't a spoiler because they put it in the trailer. The concert has a lot of security and police presence because they were tipped off that a very busy, well-known local serial killer was planning on attending the concert. Well, not a spoiler because it's in the trailer. It's the dad. Played by Josh Hartnett. He is the serial killer, and he's just there with his teenage daughter going to a concert, and now he's got to figure out how to get out of there safely because they do have like an FBI profiler there trying to look at everyone who they think fits what they've come up with as a possible description of the guy. And it's just him going from one idea to the next of how do I get out of here safely without getting caught, without upsetting my daughter because she's been looking forward to this. He is a really good dad. I just want to put that out there. He's a really, really good dad, but he's still a serial killer. Anyway, if the movie had been just that, just about 30 minutes shorter, I'm not even kidding. I think it comes in around 150. It could have been an hour and 20 minutes. And I understand why filmmakers don't make movies that short most of the time, why they feel like they have to keep going is because movies are expensive and nobody wants to pay that much money for tickets and popcorn and all that stuff for a very short film. I get it. But this needed it good 30 minutes trimmed out of it. About halfway through the movie, minor spoilers, the concert ends and they leave, and it just keeps going, and it shouldn't have. It really just should have stuck to the concert atmosphere, the arena, and him trying to figure a way out, but it goes beyond that, and it gets even more annoying because the pop star is played by M. Night Shyamalan's daughter, and her role expands beyond the arena as well. And I'm not one to jump on the hate on all Nepo baby train because it's become too trendy to do that, I think, in the last few years. But in this instance, yeah, she really was not that great, to be honest. And clearly she just got the role because Daddy wrote and directed. In fact, I have to wonder if he wrote the role for his daughter. And she just wasn't that engaging, honestly. She should have just been reduced to being the pop star on stage. She did not need to be in the rest of the film, and she absolutely inserted herself in the rest of the film, or a majority of the second half of the film, and it was so unnecessary. And it's sad because it was a really great concept, and it could have been so much more. Josh Hartnett was very good, and we haven't seen him in so long, and then it's like he popped back up in Oppenheimer, and he hadn't been around in a while, and now he's out making more movies, and this serial killer, he was so good as, like, you know, this great dad going to a concert with his daughter, all while trying to evade the police because he's a murderer. And overall, it's just sad because, you know, I remember 1999, I remember The Sixth Sense, and Shyamalan's explosion onto the scene with that movie. It just feels like it's fallen so far off of that. So Trapped. Very disappointing. Maybe next time in the night. And the next new movie I watched was Heretic, which stars Hugh Grant, the charming English rom-com Hugh Grant, as the villain of a horror movie. Didn't see that one coming.
I won't keep you if you wish to leave. But I want you to choose which door to go through based on your faith.
What does this have to do with us leaving?
Everything.
So the movie is about these two young women who are Mormon missionaries going to different homes and talking to people about their faith. And they seem to have a schedule, like they're going to this house, and this house, because these people have shown an interest in learning more about the Mormon faith. They're not just going door to door. And they end up at this very old looking house and come in contact with Hugh Grant's character. And I don't remember names, I'm sorry. Like, I'm not looking it up right now. I'm crocheting, leave me alone. But he invites them in, and because they're female, they're like, we can't be here without another woman present. And he tells them, oh, my wife is in the back. I will go get her. Just come on in and have a seat. She's in the kitchen making a blueberry pie. And so they come in and they sit down and they start talking. And he's like, well, let me go check on my wife, because they inquire, because they're nervous, obviously. And he's starting to show some very odd mannerisms and what he's talking about, the subjects as far as religion go. And so he goes to check, and they look down and they realize that there's a blueberry pie candle on the table. And when everything starts to get creepy and uncomfortable and the girl's gonna leave, he's like, sorry, my doors are on this timer and they're not gonna unlock until tomorrow morning. But you saw my house and it's on a hill, so there's obviously a way out the back, but you have to decide which door. And he starts challenging their beliefs and their religion. And so he puts like belief on one door and disbelief on another door for them to go down. And it just kind of keeps going. And I understood the overall point to it, but it doesn't make it good. It doesn't make it that interesting. Not long into it, maybe a third, I mean, things really go off the rails with how far he's willing to push everything. It becomes highly improbable that this would be going on. So about halfway through, you find out that he has been doing this for a while, targeting young religious women to challenge them in this way. And I'm not going to get into too many details. It doesn't go down as far as we know, sexual abuse road or anything like that, but it does get weird. And my problem is that this house that he's in is an old house. It's very much like a labyrinth in many places, especially the basement area. And it's not like he is just going from city to city doing this. He's clearly luring young, religious, innocent, naive women to his house. And I can't imagine that he would have been able to do this for very long and get away with it. Like, I would figure somebody would have been like, nah, why do our missionaries keep going to this guy's house and disappearing? Because the young women, the two missionaries, they had sent their elder at the church their plans for the evening of where they were going with the addresses. And when they don't show back up, he does go looking for them. And I don't know who else that Hugh Grant's character has been doing this to, if not Mormon missionaries coming to his house. I mean, it doesn't seem like he's just grabbing them off the street. They're from other religions. We don't know, but it just doesn't seem logical that he would have been able to keep playing this game without being caught. And I don't always apply logic to movies, because I understand that most of the time, if you do that, you're never going to enjoy anything. But too much of the story hinges on the fact that he's done this before, and he's just playing cat and mouse with these girls. And I just don't know how he could have gotten away with it as many times as he did. So that was my main hang up. And overall, it's just too strange to have been very effective. So yeah, overall, it was very disappointing. It ended up feeling more weird than horrifying. Suspenseful, I guess, sure. Just not that good. Not terrible, but not that good. And, but I mean, all the acting was fine. Hugh Grant was very creepy. He really was. So another disappointing horror thriller type movie, and another one that should have been a lot shorter than it was. That was another thing. It felt like this little game just kept dragging on and on and on, and it became quite exhausting. Yeah. And then another rewatch, Independence Day. We showed it to the girls. This is very much a nostalgia-based love for the movie. But I mean, like, I saw it when I was 15. It was like this awesome alien invasion movie. It was a lot of fun. The only thing that happened this time was I found Jeff Goldblum insanely attractive, which I've never done before in my life. I like Jeff Goldblum. I find him fun and quirky. I like watching him. He's very good looking for a man in his 70s. I'm shocked that he's in his 70s, actually, but I've never been attracted to him. I was very attracted to Jeff Goldblum this time around watching this movie, and I can't explain it. So, I don't know. I mean, some people might be like, well, duh, but I've just never understood, like, an actual attraction to him before. But this time, yeah, very much so. My favorite part of rewatching the movie, though, with the kids was my 12-year-old at the end when Randy Quaid's character figures out how to destroy the ships. And he does. If you've seen, you know, she's like, how does that make sense? And she's not wrong, is the thing. We all just accepted it. Definitely skipped the second one, Resurrection Day, I think. I actually did watch that, and it was terrible. So we won't be checking it out with the girls because I can't sit through that again. So for this next selection of movies, there is a running theme because I watched Nosferatu, and Nosferatu. Yeah. Hey, is that like saying Beetlejuice 3 times? Is Bill Skarsgård gonna like pop up behind me? No. Okay, well, that's a shame.
I'm ready.
First things first, spoilers for Dracula the book and all 3 Nosferatu films that I'm talking about today, because it's one of those things where I feel like I have to talk about it in its entirety to really compare and contrast and talk about. Firstly, I've made these 2 squares. This is the 1922 version. It was a rewatch, kind of. I watched it, gosh, probably 16, 17 years ago on Netflix. I think it was the version that's in the public domain, so it wasn't color. I don't know what music went with it, and I believe in the public domain version they're allowed to use all of the Dracula names. This is for the Werner Herzog 1979 version. We'll get to it. I just didn't want to make all of them on camera. So now for the 2024 Robert Eggers version. I've been thinking on it. I've really been thinking on it. I think I'm gonna go with it too. I think. So if you're unaware, Nosferatu is an unauthorized version of Dracula, the original Bram Stoker book. The book came out in late 1800s, 1890 something. I read it last year. Anyway, the first film with Bela Lugosi did not come out until 1931, and that was based off more of a stage play version that had been written. I don't know if the original Nosferatu makers asked Bram Stoker's estate and they denied it, or if they just went ahead and did it changing names and believing they had changed enough to get away with it. They didn't. There was a legal battle. Anyway, so the original film and this newer version changed the names. However, when Werner Herzog remade it in 1979, he reverted back to the names from Dracula because I guess the copyright or trademark, whatever, had run out on it. So they were up for grabs again. For the sake of argument, I'm going to use all the Nosferatu names. Ironically, the original Nosferatu film, there is a version of it that exists in the public domain, and the title cards use the Dracula names. I don't understand any of it, but that's how it works. Anyway, it follows the story of Dracula pretty closely, where a young real estate agent, though I think in Dracula he's a lawyer, is sent by his boss across the Carpathian Mountains to meet an ancient nobleman by the name of Count Orlok. And all of them go through the same odd beginnings of being, like, having trouble even getting to this old rundown castle. They are warned by the local Romani people, do not go up there. Absolutely not. They do it anyway. They get there late. They meet Orlok, who is up late at night. And at some point, the Hutter character lets slip out his locket with a picture of his wife named Ellen. And Orlok sees it and is instantly taken with her. And then Hutter kind of ends up being held captive there, can't get away. And then Orlok leaves to go to the small German town with his coffin on a ship where everybody dies, and brings a plague with rats with him. So that's kind of the basic story. It follows the beginnings of Dracula pretty closely, but there's so much more to Dracula. So I did not like Dracula, the book, last year when I read it. Someone put it perfectly on Goodreads. For the kind of OG vampire story, there's not a lot of vampire shit that happens in that book, and it's very true. What I do like about Nosferatu is that it trims a lot of the excess fat out of Dracula. So it cuts out everything with the wife's best friend Lucy and all of her suitors, and a lot of Dracula's backstory that doesn't really seem to matter. The real estate agent's very long time being held captive at the castle before he's able to escape. A lot of that's cut out, thankfully. Oh my gosh, it was exhausting. So all of that, I definitely appreciate Nosferatu more than Dracula. I still can't say overall that I love the story though. So as you can see, I did give the rewatch of the original 1922 a yellow because that's more based off the fact that it is a silent film and I do not have a silent film brain. Other than like the great look of Orlok and of course the creepy silhouette hand, which all three films have their own version of, I just don't really want to watch it again, and I only did it for the sake of watching the other two. The 1979 Werner Herzog version was really boring. It felt like stretches where absolutely nothing was happening. However, there are some very cool moments. When the plague comes to the small town, there are people who have not been infected or died yet, and they throw this really big, weird, very creepy party in the town square, and the Ellen character is running around, and it's a very 70s shot where it pans up above and it's just music and not a lot of sound effects if I remember correctly. It's been a couple weeks since I've watched it, but Ellen's just freaking out because her husband, there's something wrong with him after he's gotten back from Orlok's castle, and she doesn't know what's going on, and nobody will help her because everybody's just partying because they believe the end is nigh thanks to the plague being brought to town. It's a very cool scene, but that's about it. The rest of the movie is quite dull. And then this newest version looks beautiful. Not boring in the least, but I think it really just comes down to the fact that I'm not crazy about this story. And on top of it, I really did not like Lily Rose Depp's, I'm not even sure it's her personal interpretation of Ellen, but there was a lot more physical possession of the character in this one, where before she was just having like her dreams haunted, and in this one there's like, even when she's asleep or awake, she is being fully taken over by the spirit of the vampire, I guess, of Orlok, and it didn't work for me. Some of the contortions and stuff, it looks silly. Another reason I like Nosferatu more, besides getting rid of a lot of the excess that Dracula drags on, is that in Dracula, Mina, the wife, Ellen character, she ends up a victim because the men are all like, oh, poor Mina, we have to protect her and keep her away from all this stuff, as they're like researching Dracula and how to fight him and how to kill him. And they just kind of they try to protect her. And then what happens? She ends up becoming a victim. She doesn't die, but she does get transfixed by him. And then they find out, and then they all rush off to kill Dracula. In this one, it's the female lead character, the wife, that finds out she has to be the one, basically through her innocence and sexuality, to destroy the vampire. And it's just such a better story for me in that respect. It's not this, oh, this poor sweet innocent woman, we have to hide her away, and then she still gets sucked in. No, she absolutely is the reason he has stopped, along with his plague of rats that he's brought to town. So that brings me back to Egger's version, because in the first two versions of the film, it is the Ellen character that reads for herself that, like, the love of an innocent woman is the only way that Nosferatu is going to be distracted by the sun coming up, and that's how he'll be destroyed. In this one, it is I can't remember the character's actual name, but it's the Van Helsing type character played by Willem Dafoe that reads it, and then he goes to tell Ellen, and he's like, but you already know that, or it alludes to the fact that she knew she was going to have to sacrifice herself, but I still didn't like this dude reading it in a book and then going to tell her. I liked it so much more when she was the one that discovered it on her own, made her plan, and knew what she had to do. So that's just kind of a quick rundown of all three Nosferatus. Sorry if it was a mess. I don't take notes, honestly. I'm just trying to remember from what I watched a couple weeks ago. The newest one, I did pay for the rental through streaming, but it is now streaming through Peacock if you have a subscription to Peacock. So I will give it another shot one of these days. And yes, I know Nicholas Hoult plays the Hutter character, and yes, I know he played Renfield in Renfield a few years ago, which is a very fun movie to watch. But overall, meh. And again, I think a lot of it could be I'm just not really into this story overall. I love vampire lore. I love vampire books, vampire movies, vampire TV shows. But I just don't think I like Dracula and Nosferatu that much for being what they are. I will say that my favorite version of Ellen was in the Werner Herzog. Her name's Lucy in that one. It's a whole mess. Anyway, I cannot remember the actress's name, but she portrayed the character the best, I think, through her fear and her desire to save her husband and the ending scene with that. Unfortunately, it goes further where her husband becomes the new vampire at the very end after she sacrificed herself to kill Orlok. I hated that. I absolutely hated that part of the movie. But that's it for Nosferatu. So I'm going to do another movie. And what could I have possibly paired with these three movies in one go? Well, none other than Shadow of the Vampire.
Why him, you monster? Why not the script girl? The script girl. I'll eat her later.
Shadow of the Vampire is a fictionalized telling of the making of Nosferatu in 1922. John Malkovich plays the director of the original Murnau, and Willem Dafoe, who is in the newest version, who played the Van Helsing character, he is Max Schreck, the actor who played the original Orlok. Whew, that's a lot. But it is highly fictionalized because it is basically saying that Max Schreck was really a vampire and Murnau just wanted him for the authenticity. He wasn't really an actor. And so in order to get his perfect movie, Murnau hires him and allows him to just kind of tear through the cast and the crew of the film until he gets his perfect ending by promising him the woman who plays Ellen, the actress who plays Ellen. It was an interesting take. It was very over the top in many places. Just imagine John Malkovich and Willem Dafoe chewing all the scenery together. But the thing that got me most about the movie was it came out in 2000, but this movie really looked even older than that. It had a feel of very late 80s, early 90s, and I don't know why. So, because I mean, I can look at other movies in the early 2000s and it looks so much older. So overall, it was a very interesting concept for a film. However, I just didn't vibe with it. But I will admit, maybe I was just burned out on Nosferatu and everything to do with it by the end of the week when I watched all of these. It's hard to say. But I don't need to watch it again. It's not that it was horrible. I just don't need it. So that was my week of vampires, specifically Nosferatu. A little disappointing. Still better than Dracula. So unlike our last set, these next four have literally nothing in common at all. There was a rewatch of 2004's Napoleon Dynamite.
Can you bring me my chapstick?
No, Napoleon.
But my lips hurt real bad.
I honestly don't know why we like this movie. I can't even really describe this movie. So on movie night a few weeks ago, Brad brought down like 5 or 6 movies for the girls to choose from, and he's giving the descriptions. Oh, this is a zombie rom-com, and this is a alien invasion movie, but it's more like on a small scale for a family on a small farm in Pennsylvania. When he got to Napoleon Dynamite, we didn't really know what to say. It's about a weird guy in high school who's awkward, and that's all we had. This movie feels very mid-2000s, but it feels more like something that would have started on YouTube, like in segments or something. But YouTube didn't launch until the next year, so the same sense of humor is there, but in full-length film form. I don't know. Just if you've seen it, you've seen it. If you haven't, don't bother at this point. I mean, it's fun and dumb. It's such a stupid movie. That's all I got. So then I watched Woman of the Hour, starring and directed by Anna Kendrick. Came out last year on Netflix.
Hey. You told me your number?
I just gave it to you.
Yeah, no, I know. I just want to make sure I have the right one.
Right. Just let me see it and
Can't repeat it from memory?
So the film is very loosely based on events from the 1970s when a woman went on a dating show and picked a serial killer to be her date. Cheryl, played by Anna Kendrick, who again also directed, was an aspiring actress out in Hollywood, not getting anywhere at all, and her agent approached her with this dating show, and she's like, well, at least she'll be on TV, and so Cheryl goes ahead and takes it, but she does not want to. And then, like, the other two contestants, one is dumb as rocks, and the other one's just clearly a pervert, so the serial killer guy, the third one, absolutely knows how to manipulate people to tell them what they want to hear, and that's exactly what Rodney does. We do see some of his killings, sort of. We see the initial attack, but it is very quick. It is not gratuitous. We know that he sexually assaulted his victims. They don't show any of that. They don't show him physically killing anybody, just kind of the initial attack. So it's not voyeuristic or incredibly gruesome or bloody, and I'm pretty sure that's because it was directed by a woman. I think Anna Kendrick's like, no, we don't need to see all of that. We know exactly what he is and what he did, what he's capable of, so we don't need the audience to relive it. that's not why we're here. And I do absolutely appreciate that. I think he may have killed over like 200 women and girls across the United States during the 70s. It was a wild number. I can't remember what he was actually charged with. Spoiler alert, he does get caught. Obviously, people know who he is. But I did not know much about the story as far as Cheryl was concerned and winning this date with Rodney. I did not know where that ended up, and it was very intense and suspenseful watching it. The film is told out of order, by the way, just so you know. So it was very gripping and very much more of a suspense thriller than a horror film because, like I said, a lot of the actually horrific stuff is not shown, just talked about. So I enjoyed the movie quite a bit. I didn't know what to expect, but I'm glad I finally checked it out, and performances were great, especially Daniel Zavato. If you saw Station 11 from HBO, or now Max, whatever, a couple of years ago, he played the Prophet. He's really good at these really creepy, on-edge roles. Kind of charming, but also, like, kind of gives you the ick at the same time. All right, so that was Woman of the Hour. I'd say if you like suspense thrillers, if you like things based off true crime, if you like things with 70s vibes, if you just like Anna Kendrick, go for it. Netflix, US at least. I don't know about other countries and regions. So yeah, I enjoyed it. And the next, I had to have a comfort film. No real reason, just because I wanted to. I didn't really need comforting. But Devil Wears Prada from 2006, I believe.
And you have no style or sense of fashion?
Well, I think that depends on what you're...
No. That wasn't a question.
So I love this movie. I could watch it a million times. I did read the book, and it is one of those instances where there are many things better in the movie than the book. At first I was against Anne Hathaway's casting as Andy, but now I can't imagine anybody else playing that role. Just when I just read the book and I saw that it was her, and I was like, I don't think that works, but it does. First time I ever saw Emily Blunt, have loved her ever since. She was fantastic as Emily in the movie. Meryl Streep as Miranda, brilliant. Should not have been nominated for Best Actress for the film, though. That definitely would have been a supporting actress nod. I'm still like, really? Not that the Oscars really matter. Anyway, so it is a comfort film for me, but all the body shaming in the movie. Oh my God. I guess I just never realized how much there was, because it's been a while since I watched it, but there is so much body shaming. And it would be one thing if the main character shrugged off and didn't care, but by the end of the film, she has lost weight, and we're supposed to act like that's some kind of, I mean, she was already not big to begin with, and she loses even more weight because of this environment. And I understand it's fashion and models and all that stuff, but oh my God, it's so much. It's so much, and I never realized how much it was before. Still love it, still a comfort movie, but it's got a few problems. And then next is a new one, We Live in Time, with Andrew Garfield and Florence Pugh from last year.
What's happened to my underwear?
Oh, I literally have no idea.
So sorry, but do we know each other?
So the film centers on the love story of Almet and Tobias, played by Andrew Garfield and Florence Pugh, and it is told completely out of order. So it starts with them at the doctor's office getting the diagnosis that she has cancer once again. So it jumps back and forth from that point of knowing that she has cancer. She's also a highly regarded chef, and back to when they met, and then her getting cancer the first time, but deciding not to have a full hysterectomy. It's ovarian cancer, by the way, just so they could potentially have kids. But at some point they had broken up because she wasn't even sure she wanted to have kids. Just a lot of stuff going on. But in present day, they're dealing with the diagnosis, which is not looking great. And she is contacted by one of her former chef friends or mentors or somebody who want her to do a big cooking competition. Kind of one of her sous chefs calls it the Olympics of cooking, and it's very stressful. So she decides to participate without telling Tobias, because she knows he would want her to rest with this potentially very short time she may have left. She's still going to try to fight with chemo and radiation and hopefully a surgery, but she knows he would not approve of her being part of this very intense competition. It's a very sweet story, and at times a very sad story, but I really like the two of them together. They had a great relationship, a great chemistry. It's one of those things where I have to wonder if it were told in a linear order, would it matter at all? Would it make the story more or less poignant? Would we like these people more or less, knowing where they're going to end up before we even know where they're coming from? I don't know. There's literally no way to answer it, obviously. So, We Live in Time, enjoyable, nothing revolutionary, but, you know, every now and then we need a bittersweet love story between two young, attractive people. Okay, it is time to finish up February, and this one I just saw last Saturday. It is a brand new release. Brad and I went for date night after a lot of tacos and margaritas, and that would be The Monkey. based on a short story by Stephen King.
Everything okay up there?
Yeah, everything's fine.
Okay, so the movie is about two twin brothers, Hal and Bill, who find a toy monkey in their dad's belongings. He left years prior. And it turns out whenever the monkey bangs on the drum that it has, somebody dies. They don't get to choose who, but somebody dies. So they eventually decide they need to get rid of this monkey. Hal does try to chop it up, but it comes back. It can also teleport around too, by the way. And so they eventually lock it in a box and dump it down a well. Well, 25 years later, it's back. It has found its way out of the well and it is killing once again. Hal has grown up to be very despondent. He does not have close personal relationships. He even has a teenage son who he does not really have much contact with, except he sees him on his birthday. And Bill has gone way off the deep end. He was always a jerk, but he has really just lost his damn mind. So it's basically Hal wanting to protect his son and find the monkey and try to destroy it if he can. So the movie is batshit crazy. And I don't know what to think of it. I'm giving it a 2 because I don't know what my feelings about this are. There are times where it was hilarious and gory and just really good fun. Mainly everything to do with Hal, because he's, other than not wanting personal relationships, he is a very relatively normal dude compared to his brother Bill, who has just absolutely lost contact with reality. And so everything that happens with Hal, all the crazy deaths that start happening around him, are very humorous. They're very over the top, very gory. But then when it comes to Bill and what's going on with him, what you learn about him that he's been doing for the last 25 years, it's too weird. And I got to a point where I'm like, I don't know what's happening and I'm not sure I want to know. So I'm very middle of the road on this one. I will watch it again eventually. Maybe I will have more of an answer at that point. So for now, I will just keep it in the middle of the road. Give it another shot someday, because right now I'm still confused as hell. Theo James is a hottie though. And then I decided to watch one of my favorite musicals, which would be 2002's Chicago.
Then he ran into my knife. He ran into my knife 10 times.
So it's a fun musical based off the Broadway play. I've never seen the stage version, I'll admit, but it's just a really great production. Women in prison for murder. Did they do it? Yes. Are they trying to act like they didn't? Still yes. It's just a lot of fun, and the music is fantastic. I had made a reference to He Ran Into My Knife 10 times, and the girls looked at me like I was insane, and so Brad and I had to explain out of context Cell Block Tango. And so then I listened to the whole soundtrack the next day, and then I decided to watch the movie. So I love this movie. It just puts just the biggest smile on my face, and I sing along alone because I don't sing in front of other people. But just good fun about murder. You know, when else do we get to have good fun about murder? Anyway, 2002's Chicago. So then I really wasn't sure what I wanted to watch, and having watched Nosferatu, I realized that I had only seen The Witch by Robert Eggers. I had not seen any of his other movies, and I found The Lighthouse from 2017 streaming on Max, and I decided to give it a chance.
What's a timberman want with being a wickie?
Just looking to earn a living, just like any man. Starting new.
On the run.
Okay, so this movie is about two dudes, Willem Dafoe and Robert Pattinson, on a very remote island tending to a lighthouse. And that's it. Okay, well, that's not it, but it feels like that's kind of it overall. So it takes place in the 19th century somewhere, not really sure. It's black and white. Robert Pattinson's character is new. Willem Dafoe's character has been doing this for a while. And they're supposed to have like a 4-week stint on this island, this rock tending to the lighthouse, and it starts to blur reality and fantasy or psychosis, not really sure. And is it Robert Pattinson going crazy, or is there actually something mystical, magical about the lighthouse and this island causing him to have dreams, visions, all kinds of things? So as you can see, I didn't particularly care for it. It was beautiful. It was stunning to look at film. It was very moody and atmospheric. But as far as characters and story go, if there really was a story, if there was a plot, I wasn't really into it. And even though I can't name names right now because nothing's specifically coming to me, this felt very familiar. Not to say that he ripped off the story or anything, but I feel like I've seen films where you get these blurred lines of reality and you're not sure if your main character is reliable or what is going on. So then you just don't really get any answers by the end. It's more about atmosphere and vibes, and I need more. I need more characterization. I need a better plot. I don't need all the I's dotted and the T's crossed. I can handle ambiguity, but this didn't have enough in other areas for me to accept the unanswered questions, of which there are many. So disappointing. Not surprising though. I think when it came out, I could tell I probably wasn't going to like it very much, and that's why I put it off this long. But I figured since I watched Nosferatu earlier in the month, I should give it a try. And so it's not really disappointing because it's kind of what I thought it'd be at the same time, you know? Okay, great. Then lastly, while I was looking around Max to find something before I watched The Lighthouse, I came across their classic section, and they have Casablanca. And so I rewatched it because it's been 10 years, and that's too long because it's such a fantastic film.
Louis, I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship.
Now, I am not really into classic movies. I've watched many. Some of them I like, some of them I don't, but this one I genuinely love. I think it is, well, pretty perfect. I'm not going to sit here and say everybody should watch it, but if you've always meant to, I highly recommend because it is really, really good. At least it was a great way to end the month. Definitely on a high note. So I'm going to join all the squares, and I'll be back in just a minute. Okay, so all done. Took way longer than I expected. As you can see, it is now dark outside, but that's okay. So this is the different way I was going to do it, with continuing the granny stitch all the way around as a border after joining. For comparison, this was January, where I had done an extra round of single crochet around each square and then joined them, and then did another round of single crochet. I was afraid this was not going to give enough distinction between the 2 months, whereas I think, or thought, or hoped this would. Honestly, I am still on the fence, and I don't know which one of these ways I'm going to choose in the end. This one's slightly smaller, maybe an inch smaller around. And I don't really love it. I do like the look of this one much better. I'm just worried that there's not gonna be enough distinction. I think what I might end up doing is maybe just go ahead and do another round of single crochet in the accent color around, and that might help. Because I don't like this. I like this. I'm not vibing with this, so honestly, it's gonna really need blocked. It is so uneven. Ugh. So that's it for our February movie blanket wrap up. That was a lot to say. I'm very sorry there was no video last week. I filmed most of what I was going to do. It wasn't this. It was last weekend of the month. It was something different. I will post it next week. It was just weather and hormones, and then I gouged myself right here and could not stop bleeding last Friday afternoon, and I had the best intentions of still trying to get the video finished and out, but it just didn't work out. But next week, because it is almost done, and it wasn't super long, so there wasn't a ton of editing, so I feel kind of dumb that I didn't do it last week, but oh well, doesn't matter. So thank you so much for joining me. Like, comment, subscribe, all the YouTube things, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!